What's happening, everybody? Welcome. Today's Thursday, November 3rd. Yep, 3rd, 2022. My name's Jeremy. This is my first cup. Good morning, Mark, Dennis, Jenny, Andrew, Brian, and all the rest of you, whether you are watching live or maybe later. Thanks for coming by. How are you? How was your Wednesday? What's going on? Did you have a good day? I hope you had a good day. If you didn't have a good day, I hope today is much better because you deserve good. You deserve a great day. I think I've shared with you before. The first thing I've trained myself to do this when I start waking up before the alarm even hits. So I use one of those wake up lights. I'm going to make today a great day. Not have a great day. That suggests I'm not in control. I'm going to make it a great day. I am in control. And not a good day, a great day, a wonderful day, an incredible day, an amazing day. Maybe you can think about doing the same. Maybe that would help you. I don't know. It might not. Andrew says, nice mug. Yeah. One of you in the chat ordered this mug recently, and I had not changed the shipping settings, because I always forget to change the shipping settings, and it charged you shipping. I will be refunding your shipping soon. So this is launched. I put this up yesterday. This sweatshirt with the embroidered front and matching pants. Comes in 5-6 colors. It's super comfy. It is not the pants. I'm not gonna lie. The pants are not quite as nice as the sweatpants that we used to do, the Cloud 9s, but that is a discontinued product. We can't get them. So I searched and said, what can we do that is still a really great pair of sweatpants? And this is what we came up with. They are not the open bottom that I prefer. See, look at my foot. Everybody can see my foot. It's cuffed at the bottom, but they're not as tapered as a lot of the jogger style sweatpants are these days. So they're really comfy. I'm not going to show you just because angles are funny. I'm not going to show you. The sweatpants also have embroidery, and it's good, durable, comfy stuff. Up at whistlekick.com. If you are going to come to Free Training Day Northeast, wait until you get there to order. If you're not going to come to Free Training Day Northeast, order anytime with whatever code you want. Good morning, Andy and Gad. And it says, Pre-Friday is here. Let's hear a cheer. Woo! Come on, camera, focus. There we go. And Gad says, good morning. Almost missed it again. Show starts an hour earlier for me now. You guys do daylight savings time over there too? We all got to get rid of this stuff. Jenny says, positive affirmations definitely help. There might be a book out there that talks about daily affirmations, and someone in this chat might already be in that chapter. Is that 12 Months to Health? Do we have a chapter about that in there? And I don't remember it. Dennis, I feel like we need to get you some different vocabulary. Embroidery is the shizzle. I like embroidery. And actually, we embroidered this as large as the company would let us, which meant there was definitely an additional charge for the number of stitches. They're like, oh, okay, yes. LOL, 12 Months to Health. Okay, we have a chapter in there. I forgot that. But, you know, embroidery holds up. Screen printing, even though the company we use does a really good job, screen printing does start to deteriorate over time. Jenny says, Shizzle is Dennis's John. I feel like we need a translator or a dictionary. We need a first cup dictionary for all of the ridiculousness that happens here. Well, oh, and here, turn that off. There we go. So what else happened yesterday? I actually made it to the gym, had a really good workout, pet the dog. Half the benefit of going to the gym is the dog. Came home, put a bunch of soup up, and by soup I mean like actual food that had some turkey broth poured into it. Because remember, soup is just watered down food. Watched some TV, picked up around the house, took a shower. Had a bunch of meetings yesterday, and they went well. Andrew and I had a meeting. We recorded a couple episodes. We recorded possibly the most creative episode of martial arts radio ever done. I don't know, Andrew, would you agree with that statement? Was that the most creative episode we've ever done? Potentially one of the most creative podcast episodes ever done on any show ever? I think it might be. Brian, you're fired. Brian says, a best of the best whistle kick sayings. No, we'd have to call it something else. Kelly says, for this testing, the young kids' homework was for 2 weeks. Every day, write down one thing they were thankful for, hoping it'll help them remember that even on not great days, always have something to be thankful for. It's true. I think we forget this. Some of you know that I'm a fan of Tony Robbins. And most of what Tony Robbins starts with is around gratitude. For a couple reasons. One, it's a pretty important lesson and it gets you in a certain state of mind. And two, it gets you to see what you have differently, to see the world differently, to see opportunities differently. If you're constantly looking at what you don't have, what's bad, what's negative, that's the energy you're putting back out there. People can feel that. Nobody likes being around a negative person. But if you are grateful, if I'm grateful for this mug and those plants and for all of you, I have a very different outlook on the world. And it is, I don't mean this romantically, but it is attractive. People want to be around people who are positive and grateful and optimistic. Something to consider. Andrew says he would agree. The most creative episode of Martial Arts Radio ever done was recorded yesterday. You can mark your calendars. It'll be out, I don't remember when. Dennis says, if you've been following along since launch, you are now in month 12 of 12 Months to Health. Well, Dennis, you're the first person I know of that made it to the 12th month. So I want to thank you, and I appreciate it. You know, when we launched that project, I knew it was effective. I knew it was going to work. And I also knew that sadly, most people would buy the book and stop at some point. Because we live in a society where sustained action is undervalued, where diligence, where consistency is undervalued. I am sure that if we sat down and chatted with Dennis about some of the chapters that made an impact on him, he would be able to talk about them. We're not going to do that here. But sadly, the messaging in that book is counter to what most of media tells us. Well, just take this pill. Just do this 30-day thing. Healthy habits are rooted in consistency and not stopping. They are not rooted in, oh, I'm just going to do this a couple times and that's all I need to do it. And I understand. I get it. There are a lot of things vying for our attention. Just because I knew it was going to happen and just because it makes me sad doesn't make me sad at anyone or with anyone. You can always pick it back up. It's still there. It's still a book. You can still read it. You can still do all the things. And we've talked about this. And Dennis says making a page-a-day calendar version of 12 Months to Health could help folks stay consistent with their daily reading. It absolutely might. It's something we've talked about, but my suspicion, and I think this is somewhere on Jenny's plate to, good morning, Stacy, to price that out. But I cannot imagine that we're going to be able to sell that calendar for anything other than like $35 or $40. And I don't see people buying it at this point at that price. We would need to buy a bunch of them, and we're not selling a bunch of them. In fact, it's one of our least selling books. Maybe around the first of the year, we'll sell more of them. I don't know. It's an idea that everybody looks at. They're like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to go eat chips and ignore your great idea. Okay. Time spent reflects priorities. And if someone is unwilling to spend a minute a day reading that book and maybe the 2 to 3 minutes a day that the recommendations all add up to, let's round up, let's call it 5, then improving their health is probably not a high priority for them. That's not a judgment. We all have to spend our time and energy and money in the ways that are of most importance to us. I get it. I recognize that there are a lot of things that are easier for me to do because I am single and live alone in the woods. I get it. Yeah, Jenny confirms the 12 Month to Health daily calendar is on the to-do list and on hold for the reasons Jeremy just said. We do the best we can with what we have, where we're at. If you want different results, you have to change the actions. You have to change the inputs. But that's not easy. It's simple. It's not easy. And that's why the book is important. I have books that I've been wanting to finish. I haven't finished them. I could pick up that book anytime and read a page. There's a reason that we start our day with the things that are, or at least we should be starting our day with the things that are most important, because most of us have so much attention demanded of us through the day that it can become really difficult to still have emotional energy, to have motivation towards the end of the day. I'm in a phase right now where I have very clearly come to realize which things are robbing me of time. And in every case, I should say time and energy, in every case, it's non-martial arts related to consulting. So one of my big projects for tomorrow is I'm spending the day launching a more comprehensive approach at consulting for martial arts schools. And we will debut that. That will be a flyer and everything at Free Training Day. If I'm going to stop working with some of these non-martial arts businesses, I need to plug in martial arts businesses behind them. I need to recover that income. I'm not making a lot of money, but I'm not going to get rid of money without being able to replace it and hopefully make a little more, especially since that's the direction I want to go. So stay tuned. Let's pour some more water in that tea. Still off caffeine. It's been almost a week. Tried to go to Panera yesterday. Once again, the dining room was closed. I give up. 2 of the last 3 times I've tried to go. 3 of the last 4 I've tried to go. The dining room was closed. Killing me. I had a whole bunch of email I was going to do. I'm going to have to do it today. There's nowhere else around here for me to go and sit and do work. It really bums me out unless I'm going to drive 45 minutes one way. Andrew says, did you guys know that Eric Estrada from the TV show Chips trained in karate and kempo? I did not know that. Dennis says, there's a reason everyone gathers here every morning to start their day. We focus our time and our energy on the things and the people that are important to us. Absolutely. Andrew's doing research for Comic-Con. Apparently he's going to be there. Andrew's going to be at Comic-Con. You leave tomorrow? Today? Tomorrow? Andrew and Craig and Noah and Charlene, right? That's the crew that's going to be down there. Tomorrow. Okay. Cool. Righto. All right. Frank gave us something to talk about, and I'm sure most of you saw what happened in South Korea recently with the Halloween party and people getting smushed. And I don't use the word smush to belittle the situation. Something like 160 people died. But they got crushed in a crowd. Not a big fan of crowds. I try to stay on the edges of crowds. I don't like being in the middle of a crowd. I suspect many of you feel similarly. But what Frank has sent over, and thank you as always to Frank for all your work, and thank you to Josh for our theme music, is we've got some conversation here that came from a place that you might not expect about what to do in such a situation. Now, I'm going to take some liberties with this because some of the things that they say are good. Most of the things they say are really good. There are some slight adjustments that I think are appropriate. Where am I going? I'm going here. This is what we're doing. This and then this. Okay. And then we go back here and then we do this. Okay. It's from cardplayer.com. Just hours after the 2022 World Series of Poker main event champion was crowned, also the same period of time that the Martial Arts Super Show was in Vegas, chaos rained down at the Summer Series as reports of an active shooter on the Las Vegas Strip sent tables and chips flying while players scrambled towards the exits. As it turns out, there was no shooting at all. Nearly a mile down Las Vegas Boulevard, a glass door at the MGM Grand Casino had shattered, causing patrons and valet staff to flee, assuming it had been shot out. Word quickly spread on social media, and it wasn't long before it reached someone inside the Paris ballroom at the WSOP. And now we turn to lifehacker.com to hear about how to handle a stampede like the one above mentioned. Don't panic! According to Paul Wertheimer, a crowd expert that advises concert venues and founder of crowd management strategies, stampedes happen precisely because people panic, which is why you should not. He said a responsible venue should make emergency exit processes clear from the outset, but in the absence of them, it can unleash chaos. Even if they are clear, it can mean chaos. If 500 people try to go through a single, a double, or even a 4-door exit at the same time, people are going to get hurt. Just knowing where the exits are does not necessarily mean anything. There's a preventative element that we'll talk about. I don't think it gets into that, but we'll talk about that at the end. And there are other reasons that you can get kind of swept away. So, lack of guidance, information, and direction to a safe haven creates confusion and bad life safety choices. They trigger self-preservation defenses, panic, and putting people in a stampede to compete against each other for survival. Contrary to movies that depict crowded environments, the biggest threat isn't necessarily falling and getting trampled. It's running out of air when you're upright, called compressional asphyxia. Stay calm, focused, and aware of your surroundings at all times. Despite all desire to, don't yell or scream as you'll be wasting oxygen. Keep pace with the crowd. It's tempting to resist the movement of a crowd in order to survive by attempting to stay in place. This isn't a good move, according to wMAR. You're unlikely to overcome the strength of a crowd and risk injury. Instead, keep up with the overall pace and avoid kneeling, stopping, pushing others, and picking up fallen items. They're not worth the risk. And given a lot of situations, that includes people. It's awful to think of that scenario. And so I will be this direct at this point. Do not bring your small children into the middle of crowds. Dense crowds. Indoor crowds. Outdoors, a whole different scenario. The CDC recommends taking a boxer-like approach in large crowd stampedes. Keep your hands to your chest and maintain firm footing. I don't know why this is a boxer-like approach, but the idea of having, I wouldn't be this. I would be this. The idea that's going to create a little more space, make it a little bit harder for someone to compress my lungs, right? Look for alternative exits. Yes, if everyone is running toward an exit, that intuitively seems like the best option too, but that isn't always the smartest one. Generally, finding the nearest exit is sound advice, unless everyone decides to do the same thing at the same time. Pause for a drink. Crowd crush is the result. I recommend considering an alternative exit, even if it appears farther away. Move to the periphery or find a stable structure when you're in a crowd. Do your best to make your way out of its center where you're least likely to get to an exit. Weave in and out in a zigzag direction around people rather than a straight line, which likely will only shove people in front of you into the periphery of the crowd. If this fails, simply find an immovable structure where the crowd will be forced apart and you can stay safe and hide. Don't assume a doorway is a safe place to be either. According to the New York Times, areas like doorways create, quote, multi-dimensional pushing. In other words, they create a space where no one can really move because the crowd isn't headed in a single direction, creating a bottleneck effect of people. If you fall, cover your head. If you find yourself on the ground, absolutely get up if you can, but if it's impossible, wMAR recommends curling up on your side and covering your head with your arm to minimize damage. As soon as the crowd lets up, do your best to get up again and head to the periphery so you can safely exit the venue, gather your bearings, and call your loved ones. All right. Oh, over here. So, Jenny says, fight or flight response kicks in. Sometimes when people start to panic, it makes others panic, especially when information doesn't travel as fast as the panic. Yes. And she says, oh, I'm having trouble breathing just talking about this. I, too, am not a fan of crowds. All right. I've talked on this show. Some of you may not have been here when I've talked about it. I have talked on this show how easy it is to spark a riot, panic. There is some sociological principle around groupthink and how, as you add people, the level of intelligence goes down. I don't know the formula. Maybe there isn't even a formula. But in general, you put a bunch of people together, it doesn't take much. Anybody who's worked security knows this. It takes very little for a group of people to make a terrible decision that not one of them individually would ever make. And yet somehow put them all together and they will make that decision and all go along with it. Because no one wants to stick out from the crowd. Nobody wants to be the outcast. Nobody wants to go against the grain, especially in a situation like we're talking about. Because what if you don't have all the information? There's an implicit trust of the group and just going along with it. Okay. What is the number one indoor situation that might lead to something like this? It's a concert. We all want to be front row. Is it worth it? It's not worth it. There's no music act on earth that being in a crowd of tens of thousands in the middle is worth it. All it takes is one fire alarm. All it takes is one rumored gunshot. Remember, a mile away. A mile away, people lost their minds. Doesn't take much. So, stay to the edges to start with. If you are going to a large indoor concert, get a seat, like an actual bolted to the floor seat. People are not stampeding over those seats. They're going to bang their shins. It's not going to happen. In the text, it talked about breaking the flow, getting behind an immovable object. That will work. It doesn't take a lot to not be part of that flow. If you have small children, stay close to the exits. You're probably not bringing small children to a big concert anyway, but if you are, get a seat near the exits. You can still have fun. It's risk versus reward. If we, forget about whether it should be, forget about laws, put all that aside. It's irrelevant to what I'm going to say. We are seeing more violent altercations in public spaces now than we did, say, 10 or 20 years ago. There is an escalation of that sort of violence. And given that so many people are on edge, it takes very little. It could take the rumor of a violent situation to spark chaos. You don't want to be in the middle of chaos. Keep that in mind. A little bit of planning ahead goes a very long way in keeping you safe. Andrew says, couldn't you make the argument that the front row is the edge? You absolutely can. However, what is usually in front of you? A large immovable object that you could get crushed against. I, in my younger years, was front row at concerts, and had it been a larger venue, I would have been crushed. Stacy says, I was photographing at a concert where a large fight broke out. No seats, open admission. Luckily for me, the best way out was the band pulled me up on stage as the security dove into the mob. Kelly says, sounds like people become like sheep. People are sheep. And I don't mean that in like that term gets thrown around politically at times. These are well-established sociological principles. And I'm sure there are books written on them that you can read if this is of interest to anyone. But these ideas that crowds are intelligent, that they're not. Groups of people are dumb. And the bigger the group, the dumber they are. And the more emotionally charged the group is, the dumber they are. You cannot reason with a group of people. Then it says, if you see a crowd, rest assured you won't find me there. Jenny says, this is why I stay near the edge or in balcony seating near the bar. Andrew, I know you're joking. I was almost dragged into a fight at a concert just because people were jostling. And the root cause of the jostling was a young woman. And she bumped me into a tall guy on the other side of me. And I was like, it's not me, dude. I don't know what you want me to do. I can't stop somebody bumping into me with force. It's only been in the last few years that I've been able to look back on that show, which I was so thrilled to be front row for. It was a really happy evening for me. But it wasn't worth the risk. I only have good memories for it because the multiple bad things that could have come from it didn't happen. Take care, Gad. Dennis says, crowds are not my John. All right. So I'd like you to think about this as you go forward. Recognize that the threats that are of the greatest risk to us are not necessarily individual violence. It is, let's call it circumstantial violence. It is, I don't know, it's probably the best word for it. These sorts of crowd events happen all the time, but usually it's one or two people get, a broken rib or something. So it's not treated as a big deal, but it is preventable. It is all but 100% preventable, unlike the other forms of violence that we often talk about. It requires a little bit of planning and willingness to go against the grain. The fact that you are going against the grain by being on the edge. Yeah. Hello, Josh. Take care, Andy. Stacy says, was an occupation hazard whenever I was taking photos for an event. In front of the front row in that tiny space always meant being aware of what I was photographing and the tenor behind me. It meant great front row shots when things were going well. Fans wanted the band to get them. There we go. Oh, and it's Thursday. There's an episode of Martial Arts Radio. What is today's episode? Let's check it out. I don't see it. That's a bummer. Why don't I see it? It is Thursday, right? Yeah, it's not up. Andrew, do you know what it is? Oh, it's the Q&A. Okay, thank you. Dropped a Q&A that we did live a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. So you can check those out. Remember, if you have questions for Andrew to ask me, or perhaps you have the opportunity to come on and ask live when we stream, reach out to Andrew at whistlekickmartialartsradio.com. We'll get you on. If you want to support us, you could do something like that. You already check out the shows, which I appreciate, but you might also consider our Patreon. It starts at $2 a month. It's $2. Just saying. Or you could use the code FirstCup15 at whistlekick.com. If you want the whole list, we've got the family page, whistlekick.com/family. We do the show every weekday, 6:30 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch. I want to thank those of you who keep watching on Twitch. And thank you to all of you in general for anything. Tomorrow's Friday. I'm sure we'll have some jokes courtesy of Frank, and we'll see whatever else comes up. Have a fantastic day. Peace.